Hello again, Enwell. I'm Justin Baldoni, and I am so happy and blessed and privileged and humbled and excited and every other adjective I can think of to be hanging out and interviewing again. It's been a while. My dear friend and my soul sister, Laura Sobiech. Laura, if you don't know, is the mother of my friend Zach Sobiech, whose story I first told 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago, in a documentary series called My Last Days that aired on Soul Pancake. Zach's song Clouds, which the movie I just made is named after, hit number one on iTunes the day of his funeral. And shortly after, Laura wrote a book, and she turned her pain into art, and she blessed us all. And now here we are 6 years after that, almost. And I'm so excited to be talking to you. So thank you for being here, Laura.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
So having now known you through lots of ups and downs, at the end of the day, we just made this movie, just came out. There's so much exciting, talk and things happening. People are reaching out to you, I'm sure, from everywhere. You are played by Nev Campbell. It's on Disney. It's all around the world. Probably millions of people have seen it by this point. Zach's song just hit number one again on iTunes. He made history. But at the end of the day, and this is something that's been important for me to remember, this is still a story about you losing your son. And as exciting and amazing as all of this is, Zach's not here physically with us anymore, and you lost your boy. But yet somehow, throughout this entire process, even now, and even then, you've had this grace to you that I've rarely ever seen in another person. And where the heck does that come from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think it comes from being faced with the thing that I was afraid of the most, which was losing a child. And you have to decide along the way, am I going to hang on tight-fisted to my idea of what my life should look like and what Zach's life should look like? Or is there some kind of letting go that I can do? And it's letting go of my expectation of having a son who was going to grow up to be an adult and what that would mean for him and for me. And deciding that I was going to go where my life led and that engage in my life wherever it led me and find joy in those moments and fully immerse myself in those moments. And I've done it very imperfectly. There's plenty of times where I was anxious and just, leveled by the whole experience. But I think that's what you're referring to. And grace. I mean, it's exactly what you named it. It is grace. I view it as God's grace, because I think that when we let go of our expectations, there's all sorts of room then that's made in our lives and in our hearts for grace to enter and to guide us.
We share different faiths, but such similar spiritual beliefs. And I know we've had a lot of conversations about this. So what would you say to somebody who's going through something similar that maybe doesn't have your faith, and how can they walk this walk?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think the best answer I have there is, because it's going to look differently than how I do it, but I think the best answer that I have would be it's love. For me, God is love. So for somebody that doesn't have faith, then what that might look like is choose to focus on loving people. Rather than, I think our tendency, and especially our Western culture, is to really view death as failure. Like, if you die, you failed, and it's this really strange thing because we're all going to die, but we're really afraid of it. And it's viewed as failure. And especially if you're young and it's related to health. So there's this sort of tendency to scramble and try to find everything we possibly can to make us healthy. And that's honorable and good, and we should, because life is precious. We should do whatever we can to prolong life. But I think sometimes what happens is we allow that pursuit to take over everything. And so I think what we experienced and what Zach experienced and how he chose to do it, and I think one of the things that was so attractive about him to people is that he, rather than focusing on pursuing more days, rather than adding to his number of days, he chose to really just, okay, now I'm going to focus on the people in my life. And really, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of families with children who have passed away. And it's the thing that these kids do so well. They never forget to love the people in their life. They never forget to look outside of themselves because they want to. They just naturally want to engage that way. Where adults maybe struggle with that a little bit. We get kind of inward focused and we forget that we feel better no matter what we're going through when we choose to love those in our lives.
Zach had a really interesting relationship with time that I think you helped him work through. There's a scene in our movie with you and Zach on the front porch having this conversation that really happened. It wasn't on the front porch, I don't think, in real life, but in movie land it is. So how did you grapple and wrestle with this time from the moment he became terminal to the moment he passed? And how did Zach?
Yeah, so I think it's really connected to what we just talked about a little bit. We had to, so up to this point, up to the point where that last year of Zach's life, we'd, done all the treatments for osteosarcoma. It had been a 2.5 year, ordeal up to that point. So it was really focused on the next treatment. What's next? What comes next? That's how we were kind of doing it. And when we found out Zach was terminal and there really was nothing left that was going to significantly prolong his life, we had to make some decisions on what to focus on. And my wrestling match, so to speak, was really just with God. For me, it came down to, I don't even know what to pray for anymore. For Zach, the scene in the movie that you reference of him just really hitting that wall of knowing, like, I don't have a future to plan for. So what do I do with my time? How do I do this? And it just, for me as a parent, it was terrifying to walk him through that because he was in a space where I just hadn't been. And everything that I was saying in my head felt trite and just kind of stupid. But here's one of those moments where I just trusted and dove in and really tried to help him focus on, like, okay, what, you don't have all this stuff that the rest of us get so distracted by. And a lot of times necessarily so. Like, we have to live. We have to figure out how to do that. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to focus on what college he was going to get into and all that stuff. He could focus on, what do I want my life to look like? And for him, it just meant clearing out the space that other things, unnecessary things, were taking up, and really focus on, who am I? What do I want to do? What do I want to leave in the world?
So often we don't know what to say, right? Say the wrong thing.
Hardly ever. We hardly ever know what to say. And we need to be better about that. We need to be better about making space for that and leaning into it. And I think that's what that conversation was like, you gotta lean way into that stuff sometimes. Sometimes things aren't going to be all right, and you can't just say that. You actually have to go there. You have to talk about this hard stuff, and that's okay.
I was in another panel with a doctor who had watched the film, and she was so appreciative of that conversation as an example, and how we created it, because so often we can forget to meet the people that are going through the cancer or the suffering where they are.
One of the things that I see in in medicine and just in our Western culture is that sort of mentality of like, okay, we have to do the next thing. What's the next treatment? What's the next treatment? And I think really sometimes the solution can just be found when we calm ourselves and we just enter into the moment as human beings and meet each other where we are and just sit in that space and be still and let the peace come in and let the grace come in. And I really think it's just slow down enough to actually appreciate life. Slow down enough to live, just to engage in life. So, yeah.
Okay, I hear you. I hear you, Laura. I'm going to try to slow down.
Yeah, that was especially tailored for you, Justin.
And speaking of that, and an interesting transition, I want to just highlight that now you're working for the Children's Cancer Research Center, which is where Zach kind of left things, right?
Yeah, Zach, one of the things that he loved most in life was kids. He was the kid. He was the teenager that all the little ones would, circle around, and he could get down to their level. And so before he died, after he wrote the song Clouds, and it became apparent that song was maybe going to do something in this world, he chose to set up the Zach Sobiech Osteosarcoma Fund and raise money for research for osteosarcoma. It's one of those rare diseases that doesn't get much attention. And so far we've been able to raise $2.2 million. All of the royalties from Zach's music goes to that fund. Every dime of it goes to research. So we're really proud of that.
I'm just going to ask you one more thing. What would you say directly to somebody who is facing their mortality right now, or specifically to a friend or a sibling or a parent of somebody who's facing their mortality? What would you say to them to help them maybe in their journey?
I think I'd probably just say something very similar to what I told Zach. And that's just, we live here. We forget we live right here in this present moment, right here. So often we are already focused on the next thing. What's the next thing? And that's not where we live. We don't live in the future. We don't live in the past. We live right here in the present. And this is where you are. Tap into it. Make the most of it, but not in a busy way. You don't have to be productive, so to speak. You just have to engage in it and just relish it and enjoy it and find the joy. Immerse yourself in it. And then for those who are with someone who's dying, it's okay to be clunky and awkward in the moments, because the right time to say the big things probably will never actually show up. And that's okay, because we're human and it's never going to line up perfectly. But don't allow those opportunities to pass and regret them. Say the things that need to be said. Spend the time that needs to be spent. Love on each other. Don't lose that opportunity. Settle your souls. Immerse yourself in the moment. Don't be afraid of it. Enjoy it. And just love.
But with that, Laura, I love you so much. Thank you for doing this and for giving us your wisdom. And thank you, Unwell, for hosting this and creating space for this conversation.